Ever jumped into a horror game and thought, how is this real? These games blur the line between fiction and reality. Hyper-realistic visuals, immersive sound, and atmosphere so convincing it messes with your head. I'm Midnight, and this is horror that feels almost too realistic. Number 1. The Beast Inside. When it comes to ultra-realistic horror games, The Beast Inside definitely deserves a spot near the top. Released in 2019 by Illusion Ray Studio, this indie game blends psychological thriller with survival horror, told through two parallel timelines, one set in 1979, the other during the Civil War. One of the first things you'll notice is how it looks, using photogrammetry and motion capture, so everything from the lighting to the textures feels disturbingly real. Shadows crawl across the walls, old wood creaks under your feet. There's an eerie attention to detail. This isn't just another haunted house, it's something more complete, more unsettling. As for gameplay, it doesn't stick to one formula. There are physics puzzles, light combat, stealth sections, chase scenes, and slower moments where you piece things together through old journals. Every chapter brings something different, and that variety helps keep the tension sharp. It leans toward narrative-driven horror, but there's an immersive sim feel in how you interact with the world. At the center of it all is the story. You switch between two characters from different centuries, slowly uncovering how their lives are connected. There aren't big cinematic cutscenes. Instead, the game tells its story through the world itself, through scattered notes, voiceovers, and careful design. And that grounded approach works really well here. Number 2. A Quiet Place, The Road Ahead. A Quiet Place, The Road Ahead brings the tension of the film series into a first-person survival horror game, with a fresh story set about 105 days after the start of the alien invasion. It doesn't rely on familiar characters or events, but it captures the same nerve-wracking atmosphere that made the movies stand out. You play as Alex, a pregnant music student with asthma, trying to survive in a world where noise means death. The core idea is simple but brutal. Stay quiet or you're dead. Even something as small as a cough or a creaky floorboard can attract the deadly creatures that hunt purely by sound. Gameplay leans hard into that silence. You shuffle across rugs, pour sand on floors to soften your steps, and move slow, really slow. There's even optional microphone support, so if you make a sound in the real world, the game reacts. It's a clever idea, and when it works, it adds a level of immersion that's hard to find elsewhere. Visually, the game makes good use of lighting and detail. Abandoned homes, overgrown fields, dim interiors, they're all built to keep you on edge without overusing the monsters. But the real standout is the audio. Every creak, crunch, or sudden silence makes you pause. And most of the time, it's what you don't hear that puts you on edge. That said, the pacing is slow, and the gameplay is pretty linear. You'll be collecting asthma meds, managing stress, and stopping often just to avoid making noise. For some, that slow rhythm adds to the atmosphere. For others, it can feel repetitive, especially when the enemy AI slips up or the tension starts to fade. Still, The Road Ahead does a solid job bringing the core concept of the films into a playable format. It's not a huge or complex game, but it understands what makes quiet terrifying. If you're looking for something focused more on atmosphere than action, and you're okay with moving slow, this one is worth checking out. Number 3, Pine Harbor. Pine Harbor landed in early access in 2024, and it brings a heavy, gritty kind of survival horror to the table. Set in a fog-covered North Atlantic fishing town, the game drops you into the aftermath of something awful, something that's warped both the place and the people who used to live there. Everything feels off. Silent streets, rotting buildings, and creatures you can almost see in the fog if you stare too long. What really sets Pine Harbor apart is its atmosphere. Built on Unreal Engine 5, the game pushes realism without overdoing it. The fog isn't just for looks, it genuinely messes with your sense of space. Lighting is subtle and tense. The gameplay sticks close to classic survival horror. It's all first person, with tight resource management, scavenging, and combat that's a careful mix of melee and firearms. You've got quests, but there's no glowing path leading the way. You'll spend a lot of time just figuring things out, and the enemy respawns keep pressure on, especially if you're low on ammo. When night hits, survival gets even harder, so thinking ahead actually matters. Number 4, Wronged Us. Wronged Us is an ambitious third-person survival horror game from Delusional Studio set in the eerie, decaying town of Lowell. It's open world, but not in the usual sense. There are no glowing quest markers or mini-maps. Instead, you're left to explore on your own, picking up clues from the environment, strange NPCs, and whatever else you can piece together. The town feels isolated and alive in a very unsettling way. The game leans into a design philosophy that's clearly inspired by titles like Silent Hill, Resident Evil, and Dark Souls. Everything has weight. You'll solve puzzles, fight twisted monsters, and talk to characters who don't always give clear answers. It's more about discovery than direction, which might be refreshing or frustrating depending on what you're looking for. Visually, Wronged Us runs on Unreal Engine 4 and 5, and it shows. The town has a grimy, oppressive look. Fog hangs over the streets, sound is used sparingly, and most of the time, you feel completely alone. Some of the enemy designs are genuinely disturbing. There's one that moves in a way that'll stick with you, not because it jumps out, but because it doesn't. The story focuses on Isaac, a grieving father who returns to the town after the loss of his son, only to find the place has turned into something nightmarish. That said, the game's still a work in progress. There's no release date yet. Development has been going on for a while, with a few reworks along the way. Number 5, Unrecord. Unrecord is a tactical shooter that looks almost too real. Shot entirely through the lens of a police body camera, the game ditches the usual first-person format. Instead, you get shaky movement, a bit of fisheye distortion, and animations that mirror real human motion so closely, a lot of people thought the first trailer was actual body cam footage. You play as a detective working through tense, unpredictable situations, clearing rooms, making snap decisions, and facing off against armed suspects. Where the fuck is Oscar? But this isn't some high-speed shooter. The pace is slow and deliberate. The body cam angle makes everything feel slightly off balance, like you're watching a raw crime documentary and living inside it at the same time. Visually, it's one of the most striking games in development. Built on Unreal Engine 5, it goes all in on realism. The lighting, textures, and animations are detailed in a way that's easy to mistake for real life. There's no on-screen HUD, no markers, nothing to break the immersion. Just your weapon, your environment, and whatever waits around the next corner. Gameplay blends tactical combat with light investigative work. You'll need to move carefully, react fast, and think like a detective. There's not much hand-holding, and no sign of VR or arcade-style mechanics. Everything is grounded, every encounter feels dangerous, and every wrong move can cost you. There's no confirmed release date yet, and details are still limited. But the reaction so far has been intense, for good reason. Some people are even questioning if games should look this real. Still, if you're into highly realistic shooters with a heavy focus on tension and immersion, Unrecord is absolutely worth your time.
Shots fired! Shots fired!
Number 6. EXP War Trauma, a first-person psychological horror game that takes a different approach. Instead of fighting enemies or escaping danger, you're placed inside the mind of a World War II soldier named Krieger, trapped in a dim, confined apartment. There's no combat, no exit, just you, the walls, and a growing sense that something isn't right. The game mixes slow-paced exploration with timed puzzle sequences that, when the timer runs out, things shift. Rooms disappear, shadows move where they shouldn't, and the entire space begins to twist in ways that don't follow logic. You're not being hunted, but you are being pushed, mentally. The horror comes from the instability of the world and the weight of memory. Visually, it's built in Unreal Engine 5 and it shows. The lighting is stark and moody, textures are highly detailed, and the sound design builds a constant, low-level tension. Nothing jumps out at you, but everything feels wrong. That quiet sense of unease doesn't let up. What makes EXP War Trauma stand out is its focus on atmosphere and emotional discomfort. You're not trying to win, you're trying to understand. The game asks you to sit with difficult moments, to take in the silence, and to face trauma that doesn't come with easy answers. It's an unsettling, memorable experience, and one that earns its place on this list for how effectively it trades action for psychological weight.
Krieger! Help me!
Number 7. Supernatural, a first-person indie horror game that quietly dropped in mid-2024 and instantly grabbed attention with one very clever feature. It listens to your voice. You play as Detective Wyatt, digging into the case of a missing housemaid inside a creepy old mansion. It starts off like a classic haunted house setup, but what makes it stand out is how it uses your microphone. The game literally reacts to your voice. Talk too loud, and the supernatural stuff starts getting more aggressive. Stay quiet, and you might survive a little longer. It's a simple mechanic that adds a surprising amount of tension. The core gameplay blends slow-burn exploration, light puzzle solving, and tracking ghostly activity using a camera. It's not just about walking around. You're piecing together clues while trying not to make noise, and at some point, things escalate to where your character might need to draw his revolver. How it all ends depends on how you play, with 3 possible outcomes. Visuals are powered by Unreal Engine 5, and while the lighting and shadows do a lot of heavy lifting, the environments can feel a bit prefab. It looks good, no doubt.
Are you friendly? Where are you?
Number 8, Still Wakes the Deep is a first-person horror game set on a remote oil rig in the 1970s. You play as Kaz, an electrician trying to survive not just a brutal storm, but something far more disturbing that begins to spread through the rig. You're stranded at sea, cut off from the world, and completely outmatched. What pulls you in right away is the realism. The sound of the wind hitting rusted metal, the groaning of the structure, the thick Scottish accents. It all works together to make the setting feel alive and dangerous. There's no HUD, no weapons, just your flashlight and a growing sense of dread. The game keeps things grounded. You'll crawl through tight ventilation shafts, wade through waist-deep flooded corridors, and avoid things you only ever catch glimpses of. The horror here doesn't rely on jump scares. Instead, it builds slowly, layering tension until even small moments feel heavy. Gameplay is fairly straightforward and linear. There aren't a lot of mechanics to learn, and some sections can feel a bit repetitive, but that's not really the point. The strength of Still Wakes the Deep is in the way it immerses you. You don't just play it, you feel trapped inside it. If you're into horror that's grounded, atmospheric, and focused more on setting and mood than combat or complex puzzles, this one is absolutely worth a look.
You bring the police to my door, to my rig.
I can sort this, right? I just need time.
Don't you answer me back! You're fired. You hear me? Fired.
Jesus, Gregor! Gregor!
Number 9. Once Alive. Once Alive is a short first-person horror game developed by a solo creator and released in late 2024. You play as James, who travels to an abandoned village called Houseville after a global pandemic, searching for answers in a place that's been forgotten for years. Visually, this game is impressive, especially for a one-person project. Built in Unreal Engine 5, it leans heavily on atmosphere. Fog blankets the streets, interiors feel untouched and uneasy, and the lighting gives everything a muted, almost cinematic feel. There's no reliance on cheap scares either. Instead, the tension creeps in slowly and stays with you. Gameplay is simple and pretty slow. You walk through the village, read notes left behind, and slowly piece the story together. There's no combat, no big set pieces, just quiet exploration. It's short too, maybe an hour or two, but it uses that time well if you're into mood-driven horror. Of course, it's not perfect. There are occasional performance hiccups, and the voice acting can feel a bit flat. But considering it was made by one person, Once Alive still manages to leave an impression. It's one of those small-scale horror games that understands how to use space, silence, and isolation to pull you in. If you like indie horror with strong atmosphere and don't mind a slower pace, this one's worth checking out.
To welcome you to our village, Houseville. Please, make yourself at home.
As you can hear, my dear communion, sacred words of God align perfectly with what science has discovered.
I can try to repair the cable with something.
Number 10, Fort Solis. Fort Solis is an atmospheric sci-fi horror set on a deserted mining station on Mars. You step into the boots of Jack Leary, an engineer responding to an emergency alert at the isolated base. As night falls and a vicious sandstorm approaches, you explore the eerie facility seeking answers. What makes it ultra-realistic? The visuals and sound design are exceptional. Photorealistic environments, tight lighting, and ambient creaks and alarms all combine to build a palpable sense of isolation. There's no HUD, no sprint, and limited interaction, making every step deliberate and slow. Narrative unfolds through environmental storytelling. Audio logs, video diaries, and subtle cues scattered across bunk quarters, labs, and storm-swept corridors. Dialogue and performances anchor the emotional weight, giving it cinematic quality. It plays like a 4-chapter interactive film, about 4 hours total, and while the pacing is deliberate, it rewards patient players. There's minimal gameplay beyond viewing logs or triggering scripted sequences, so don't expect fast action. It's not perfect. Some players find it too slow, QTEs underwhelming, and the story leaves some threads unresolved. But if what you're chasing is tension, isolation, and a grounded sci-fi thriller that prioritizes atmosphere over action, Fort Solis delivers.
How are you holding up? Well, what the hell is going on there?
Solis, it's...
Jack? What happened?
We need to go.
Jack!
This is Jessica.
Number 11. Go Home, Annie is a psychological horror game set in the SCP universe, released in late 2024. You play as Annie, a junior employee at the SCP Foundation, sent to a remote facility to test strange anomalies. What starts as routine quickly turns strange and then unsettling. What makes the experience feel grounded is its minimalism. There are no weapons, no on-screen indicators, just a camcorder that reveals things your eyes can't. The environment itself feels like a living puzzle. Hallways shift, rooms don't behave like they should, and space begins to lose meaning the deeper you go. The visuals and sound design carry a lot of the weight. There's subtle radio chatter, ambient audio that makes you stop and listen, and solid voice acting that helps sell the world. Lighting is low and moody, and textures feel detailed without being flashy. It's never overwhelming. It's just off, in the right way. Gameplay is mostly about exploration and puzzle solving. You'll manipulate objects, interact with anomalies, and move between layers of reality. The puzzles are logical and don't rely on trial and error. They fit the tone, quietly clever but never flashy. The game runs about 4 hours, and while some animations and transitions feel a bit rough, the atmosphere more than makes up for it. If you're into slow-paced, surreal horror with a strong focus on story and mystery, and especially if you enjoy the SCP universe, Go Home, Annie is a unique indie title that's easy to recommend.
Are at the heart of the spiral where worlds collide.
This is not what I meant when I said you should take control for a change.
Each turn you took has led you to this exact point at this exact time. And here we are now.
You can't do it by yourself. Come home, Annie.
Number 12. Pneumata. Pneumata is an indie survival horror game that dropped in September 2024. You play as Detective David Hernandez, sent to investigate a string of disappearances in a crumbling apartment complex called Clover Hill. From the moment you arrive, it's clear something's deeply wrong. The game leans into gritty realism mixed with Lovecraftian unease. You'll move through narrow, decaying hallways, listen to distant whispers, and find walls stained with blood that almost seem to breathe. Reality slips a little the longer you stay. Combat is slow and unforgiving. Melee weapons feel clunky, but intentionally so, and ammo is rare. Sometimes shooting doesn't work at all, which forces you to rely on stealth or distraction. The AI is unpredictable, which makes each encounter feel risky. You're always a little unsure whether to fight, hide, or run. What sells the horror is the environment. The building itself feels like a character, claustrophobic, dimly lit, and filled with subtle sound cues that keep you on edge. It's not about constant action, it's about keeping your guard up, always. At its core, Pneumata is an investigation game. You gather clues, reconstruct memories, and slowly piece together what's happening. The pacing is deliberate, and there's a strong focus on atmosphere over spectacle. If you're into cosmic horror, detective stories, and survival mechanics that keep you constantly uncomfortable, Pneumata is worth your time. Number 13. Karma, released March 2025. You step into the shoes of Daniel McGovern, an agent in a dystopian East Germany ruled by a corporate regime. Your job: dive into suspects' minds to solve crimes. But the deeper you go, the more your own reality unravels. Visually, this game pushes boundaries. Built in Unreal Engine 5 with mind-bending environments, lumen lighting, and surreal detail, it blends cinematic style with oppressive atmosphere. Creepy offices, eerie corridors, shifting dreamscapes, everything looks and feels deliberately strange. Gameplay is minimal. Explore, interview, solve puzzles, and probe memories. There's no combat or action-heavy set pieces. Instead, you walk through fragmented mind spaces, piece together clues, and face escalating paranoia as events spiral. The narrative is dense, symbolic, and rarely spelled out. Themes of surveillance, identity, and control surface in cryptic documents and distorted scenes. It takes patience and tolerance for ambiguity, but pays off with deep, lingering unease. The Dark World isn't for those expecting fast scares or punchy gameplay. It's for players craving unsettling storytelling, visual symbolism, and emotional weight. If you're into psychological horror that lingers, and you're okay with ambiguity, this is one of the most striking indie games of its time.
I don't want to die! Daniel!
And now I can trust no one, even the company.
Hold my hand tightly.
Number 14. Dark Mass. Dark Mass is a first-person underwater psychological horror game, currently in development and set to release for PC and next-gen consoles. You play as Alice, a deep-sea explorer who stumbles upon a mysterious sunken manor hidden beneath an old shipwreck. With only her brother Reed guiding her over the radio, you're left to explore eerie, decaying corridors where strange rituals once took place. The game is built around thalassophobia, the fear of deep water. Movement feels heavy and claustrophobic, every creak and shadow intensified by the underwater pressure. There's no HUD, no fast pacing, just slow, deliberate navigation through pitch-black spaces. Puzzle design centers on ritualistic devices and moral choices, with each decision leading to different endings. There's no combat here, just psychological tension and environmental storytelling that pulls you deeper into the manor's secrets. Visually, it's stunning. Powered by Unreal Engine 5, everything from water distortion to corroded textures looks unsettlingly real. The audio is muffled and disorienting, reinforcing the sense that you're truly submerged and alone. Number 15. The Fading of Nicole Wilson. The Fading of Nicole Wilson is a folk horror mystery adventure set in rural Montana. You play as Britt, a teenage ghost hunter looking to build her online following by exploring the abandoned Timberline Hotel. When her partner unexpectedly falls ill, she's left alone to face the growing unease within the building. Equipped with just a camera and basic ghost hunting tools, Britt documents supernatural events while unraveling the hotel's hidden history. The gameplay focuses on exploration, environmental storytelling, and subtle puzzles. There's no combat, just quiet dread, strange sounds, and lingering questions. The game leans heavily on audio design. It uses binaural sound to make every creak, breath, and whisper feel uncomfortably close. Combined with slow pacing and a grounded setting, it creates a deeply immersive experience. The story explores themes of grief, guilt, and loneliness without resorting to typical horror cliches. It's less about jump scares and more about emotional weight, how silence and isolation can be just as terrifying as monsters. If you enjoy slow-burn horror that trades violence for atmosphere and meaning, The Fading of Nicole Wilson offers something different, intimate, eerie, and thought-provoking.
Can you speak with ghosts? I seriously need them to stop rearranging my sock drawer.
I can barely understand the living. The dead are way beyond my linguistics.